Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Hadley Dalton, and over the past 5 years, I've had the pleasure of studying computer science at Brown and illustration at RISD. Before I begin, I would like to thank my Capstone advisors, Ellen and Mattia, all of my professors who saw potential in my work and pushed me to take it further, and my friends who inspired me endlessly. And of course, my family, who supported me from day one and encouraged me to beat the odds and apply to this program. Part 1, the past. From a young age, I found myself drawn inextricably towards the internet. As a young girl, I was often chastised for favoring the imaginary worlds in my head over the one we all share, and the internet was a huge source of validation. To me, it was a wonderland where you could be completely in charge of your own image. I would borrow my parents' laptops and escape into a world of pseudo-socialization, liberated from the crutch of physicality, interacting with countless more people every day than there existed in my entire school. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like the starting point to an unhealthy relationship with the internet. And maybe I should have been doing something like team sports or student council. And trust me, I was involved in all of those things, but none of them were quite so instrumental in the development of my identity as was navigating the World Wide Web. You see, everything changed when I discovered the website Tumblr. Today, little remains of this cyber empire that reached its peak in the early 2010s. A network of blogs operated primarily by 10 to 16-year-olds. Tumblr was a marketplace for niche content and, more importantly, for self-expression. What made Tumblr unique is that not only could you post and repost content to your blog, like all social media mechanisms today, but in addition, you could customize the look and feel of your blog. If you knew HTML and CSS, the possibilities were limitless. With the help of several like-minded Tumblr users, I was able to learn the ropes of these basic coding languages and built original website themes. I also brought my practice to others, writing code that I posted on a storage site called Pastebin so that other citizens of Tumblr could use it for their own blogs. Gradually, my self-perception, which had previously been defined by a lack of confidence, shifted as I began to take pride in my newfound identity as a virtual artisan and trader of code. Years later, upon arrival at RISD, my love of coding had fallen to the back of my mind. Compared to the artwork that my peers were making, coding felt robotic, uninspired, a means to gain notoriety on the internet that left me with nothing to show to the people by my side in real life. At this time, I felt a lot of uncertainty and pressure to be a good artist. It seems ironic that one can feel pressure to fit in at an art school, but that's exactly how I felt. I felt like everyone around me had something inside of them that called them to the canvas or to the camera or to the clay that demanded to be realized, but for me, I couldn't seem to find it. I tried to make artwork that was on par with that being created around me, but there was a lot of hidden emptiness in the work I made. This dress is beautiful, but devoid of any color. This painting is colorful, but also grotesque. These faces are pretty, but they are drowning. The problem was, I was only making art for myself, hoping to mask my lack of inspiration with technical brilliance, hoping that someone would see some kind of potential in it so I could feel like I was a good artist. In reality, I was barely scraping the surface of what art is. It wasn't until arriving at Brown the following year that I thought to look back into my childhood hobby. Coming to Brown in the fall of 2020 was a huge culture shock for me, who had spent the entire past year working with paint and charcoal. Add COVID restrictions on top of that, and it was a completely different world. There was no more painting. I wrote essays, did math, spoke French, crafted business proposals, and presented them on Zoom. And then there was everyone there. Many students I met had no familiarity with art. Although it was fascinating to speak to such brilliant and accomplished people, as I did at RISD, I also felt a newfound sense of hopelessness. Because although I had felt lost at RISD for not being a good enough artist, I now felt that the creativity I possessed was impractical at Brown. And I wondered how I could ever possibly reconcile the spheres of art and scholarship in a way that was meaningful and inspiring to me. Part 2, the present. This all changed when I decided to enroll in a curious-looking class called CS15, Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming. Renowned for its rigor and challenging assignments, the class also boasted the leadership of none other than Andy Van Dam, the same man whose research contributed to the development of hyperlinks in the 60s. Essentially, he is the reason why we are able to click on things on the computer screen and be taken to different places. My mind wandered back to the basic HTML and CSS I had written on Tumblr so many years ago. HTML and CSS are markup languages, meaning that they are used for styling web pages. The language taught in CS15, by contrast, was Java, a programming language. This means that it allowed for the creation of interactive and dynamic applications. That is, applications that can actually respond to user input. Thus, my prior knowledge of coding would offer me little aid in navigating computer programming, and that is why I had low hopes for the class. It seemed like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but maybe by enrolling in it, I would feel good about myself and gain some sense of validation that I was on the right track. Expecting to feel unengaged and uninspired, I was actually swept away by the class. All assignments had a visual component, and we were tasked with recreating popular games like Fruit Ninja, Doodle Jump, and Tetris. I became so involved that I would code for hours on end, my childhood self coming alive again to bask in the glow of the laptop screen. One of the assignments was to create an interactive cartoon on a graphical user interface. Out of over 300 students in the class, 6 winning cartoons would be selected and the creators would earn a free lunch with Andy Van Dam himself. I worked day and night to add features to my cartoon, which included a sky that changed to reflect the time of day, which was determined by keypad number input. So entering 1 on the keypad would show the sky at 1 p.m. And to my surprise, my cartoon was voted a winner. After this, I fell in love with the idea that people could interact directly with what I had made and feel some kind of joy and reward from it. I thought back to my days as a freshman at RISD, painting for hours and hoping that someone would resonate with the product. For some artists, this is what they prefer, and many resonate with their products. However, in my case, I quickly realized that I prefer to make art interactive through programming. A program can be accessed by anyone with a computer. This makes it more accessible, allows people to share it easily, and allows more people to participate. The final project in CS15 was to follow a template to implement another game, the options for which included Flappy Bird, Pac-Man, and Othello. There was also an option to create your own game from scratch. And of course, that was the one I picked. The result was called Pet Garden. The goal of Pet Garden is to provide users with an addictive incentive to study. The premise of the game is that the user can log hours of productivity in exchange for currency, which can be used to purchase pets, pet toys, and additional features. The pets and toys are then placed into a garden that the user can customize. Through the development of Pet Garden, I found myself warming up to the idea of merging spheres of scholarship and art. Designing the game engaged my artistic skills, while the programming component allowed me to take it a step further and add interactivity. I noticed that many other members of my class prioritize the programming and functionality components over the visual artistic ones. Showing Pet Garden to members of my class and TAs, I emphasized the importance of the visual components and was able to introduce some visual strategies into their own game-making processes. By holding the visual and programming components to equal importance in my game, I was able to involve an audience who may not have been previously receptive to art and the art making process. What I mean by this is that including artwork within games and other interactive media opens up a whole new means of sharing the artwork. And that is where I found my purpose as a student of both art and scholarship in the Brown RISD dual degree program. Over the next few years, my goal was to learn as much as I possibly could about computers. The ability to craft a personalized experience for anyone in the world was hovering over my head, and with every new class I took in the computer science department at Brown, I drew closer to it. As part of an optional assessment for Andy Van Dam after CS15, I was challenged to code my own version of Andy's current project. And what was his project, you might ask? Rooted in his original invention of hyperlinks, this more recent endeavor was a mini hypertext system called Dash. Dash is an environment for document-based networks, essentially a canvas that the user is able to populate with notes that contain media. What makes this canvas special is that the user can link the notes together. Imagine a miniature scale visualization of the internet, with each web page being stored in a note. A little ambitious for someone who just learned the basics of object-oriented programming, but I decided to give it a try. Teaching myself two new languages and frameworks, React and JavaScript, I used this challenge as an opportunity to propose some suggestions for a hypothetical redesign of the existing web app. Experimenting with Dash, I noticed several features of the user interface which made it difficult to navigate and use. I decided to improve upon these issues by simplifying the functionality of Dash to make it more user-friendly. In case you're not already aware of the user experience design process, I will walk you through the one I took here. I began by conducting an analysis of the existing web app and identifying some pain points that made usability difficult. The pain points I found on Andy's version were as follows. The first was an unappealing color palette. The app lacked a sense of identity. The second was small text. The notes were difficult to read. Furthermore, the capabilities of each note were unclear. If Dash's functionality had not been explained to me beforehand, I would have no idea what the notes are supposed to do. The app was also littered with vague and repetitive icons. There was no codified system that made it clear what each icon was supposed to do. And finally, the whole app lacked instruction throughout. Instructions, like icons, were vague and unclear. For example, what does a button called text do? I concluded that the primary goal of this redesign should be to first, implement the basic functionalities of Dash, and two, address each of the pain points that made the app easier to make the app easier to navigate and use. To tackle goal one, I began by breaking up Dash's functionality into four components. The first is creating notes on the canvas. These can include text, image, video, and web links. The second is moving and resizing notes on the canvas. And the third is grouping notes together in collections to organize them by topic. And the fourth is linking notes together, which is of course the meat of the app. Each note, when viewed, must be able to navigate the user to other notes. To address goal two, I first created an affinity diagram to map each pain point to its potential solutions. Synthesizing my findings, I proceeded to make a wireframe sketch that integrated the four goal functionalities of Dash while also addressing the pain points. I then transferred the sketch to a prototype in Figma. The next step was to code the functional web app using React, TypeScript, and SCSS. These are some screenshots of the final result. This diagram highlights how my solution aims to amend the usability issues posed by the original Dash. Firstly, I implemented a clear sense of identity via a distinct color palette and a clearly visible sidebar that serves as the control system for the entire app. I also created a clear and codified system of icons with obvious functionalities, allowing the user to create, move, and resize notes. I changed all text to be clear and instructional, giving the user a distinct idea of what each button does. Finally, I implemented a collection and linking system, allowing the user to store notes in collections that are clearly comprehensible through the visual structure of nested notes, actually appearing within parent notes. The user can also link notes together by creating folders. Think of this as being equivalent to creating bookmarks on your web browser. The core functionalities of the app are also preserved. If you're interested in learning more about this project, it is up on my website. In the end, I was once again able to apply visual design principles learned at RISD to a computational project in order to develop a customized experience. Mr. Van Dam complimented my unconventional approach to implementing the project and offered me personalized feedback and suggestions. Although satisfied with what I had been able to create on my own, I decided to expand beyond the scope of my own influence and apply to a lab so that I could contribute my development skills to a collaborative team and achieve the positive impact that I could not yet as a single person. This lab was none other than the PEAC lab at Brown, that is Psychiatry, Embodiment, and Computation, founded by Professor Friederike Pechner. Rike's mission was to develop an app that would allow users to track and manage chronic pain. This app was called Soma. To develop the app, Rike had joined forces with the Brown Center for Computation and Visualization, whose team I also joined as an intern. There, I was able to work with mentors and receive creative advice on how to code out an effective user-facing interface. I also created an animation showcasing the app in the App Store, which I will play now. I enjoyed the honor of working with many amazing designers, developers, and researchers working at the CCV. I worked under the guidance of Ellen Duong and Bradford Rohr, two research software engineers. Through weekly meetings and check-ins, they helped me to perfect my technological competencies. Since then, my path to the present has been lined with many more artistically computational endeavors, some more programmatic and others more visual. For example, last summer at my software internship with Activision Blizzard Media, I integrated performance monitoring software into our team's code base to make the debugging process easier and more transparent for our team members. However, I was surprised by the lack of fulfillment I felt in software development alone, likely because of its impersonal quality and missing visual components, leaving me unable to touch my audience directly with an interactive experience. The following semester, in a RISD class taught by Mattia Casaleno, I turned to something that lay on the opposite end of that spectrum: augmented and virtual reality development. This was incredibly exciting because it brought new meaning to the interactive experiences that I created. Rather than living in a space on the computer screen, my audience could now experience worlds I created unfold around them physically. With elementary knowledge of a 3D modeling tool called Blender, I created a game called Cat Finder that takes place in a fictional land called Train City. These are some of the environments that are found in Train City. So now we've arrived in the present. Thank you for sticking with me. I've been incredibly lucky to graduate from both institutions with the help of everyone here today and many others. I found what I truly enjoy doing, which is exploring ways to make visual environments interactive and accessible to others through computer programming. And with programming growing more advanced every day, I can only imagine where this will lead. I found a critical point at which I can apply the creative skills nurtured at RISD to the pre-professional track I followed at Brown. So where is the next stop? My goal is to use this unique intersection of art and scholarship to create tools that will better humanity as a whole. In addition to making aesthetic experiences accessible to everyone, I am interested in continuing to develop products that will make a difference to those who use them, incorporating computer graphics, computer vision, software development, and also, of course, AI, which I didn't touch on in this presentation, but is certainly here to stay. My product development will be aware of the ethics of new emerging technologies and also the importance of the artistic sphere in the tech realm. Thankfully, this is something that my childhood self would approve of, which I think is a great quality for any vocation. To start off, I'll be working as a user experience engineer at BMW, designing and implementing software features to make driving safer. I am so excited for what's to come, and I would like to once again thank everyone here for supporting me along the way.